Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of B2B Live. I am your host, Lisa Abraham. I'm so very excited to be here. I trust that you are excited to be here also. Now, if you're new to the channel, welcome. And if you happen to like this episode, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Today, I'm going to be talking about boardroom mastery, how you, as a senior executive, as an entrepreneur, how you can actually have the impact that you need, the influence that you need as a board member to stretch yourself, especially as an executive, as an entrepreneur. So a lot of people, what happens is that they've reached a certain level. Maybe they have their own business. Perhaps they're a senior executive at a company. Maybe you've hit director level, and they're kind of thinking, what's the next step? Some people are just like, well, I need to stay here and this is what I'm going to do. But then they forget about the community. They forget about their reason why, because they've accomplished their goal. They're in a position now of authority. They're in a position now of power. And today it's saying, well, how can I use my influence? How can I use my positioning as an executive, as an entrepreneur, as a leader in my industry who is actually impacting and influencing communities and or nations, depending on the size of the organizations that you're with? How can I positively impact that? How can I stretch myself to make sure that my gifts, skills, talents, abilities, everything that I've worked on for decades, how can I give back and be of service to make this world a better place and support the economy and support communities and help the next generation because, well, they are the leaders. Well, my dear friends, I'm going to call you friends because we've been on this journey for months now. You need to be on the board. Become a board member. I know I haven't even touched this subject yet. It is so great. So if you see my profile, you'll see I have on there that I'm a board member, right? I'm on a board. I talk about these sometimes. And some people don't fully understand what that means. Well, this session today, yeah, you want to be here. You want to understand not only the benefits of it, but how you can stretch yourself, challenge yourself, and use your gifts, talents, and abilities so you can actually be of influence and of impact in your business, in your own life, in your community, and as well as several communities. And you can actually make a difference on a different level. I know it's insane, it's wild, but it is so good. So don't forget, if you have a question, please put it in the comments. If you're a board member or a board advisor, put it in the comments, share your insights, share your tips, and I'm going to be as fast as I can because I really want you guys to get some insights. So, well, what are the roles and responsibilities of a board member? Well, like any organization, there are different departments. As we all know, there's the governance committee, the strategic committee, there's all these different levels. And then, of course, there are people on that team. And the board works with the directors, the CEOs, and they go through the organization, right? Where do they need help? How we can get certain ROIs, et cetera, et cetera. I won't go too much into detail of that because I really want you guys to understand the benefits. I actually want you to receive the value of why you need boardroom mastery and why you should be on a board, why you should be helping your community. Now, there is a distinction between becoming an active executive versus a strategic advisor. What is that difference? What does that mean? Well, so an active executive, they directly manage and they oversees the operations of a company, right? They go with the making the day-to-day decisions. A strategic advisor provides that high-level guidance and expert options. And we all need this in our business, right? We need that advisor. That's why people pay thousands of dollars, yes, so we can have someone to advise us, like strategists, coaches, to help guide us so that we can execute. Right? They're involved in the execution of the plans. So if this is what you do on a day-to-day business, good on you. And or if you need someone to support you in that, well, then you need to start figuring out what type of strategic advisor you will need. Now, how do board roles and how do you, as a board member or potential board member, how does your positioning and your role differ from the three different types of enterprises? For example, like a startup or a growth stage versus an established enterprise. Well, of course, the requirements, the time requirements is different. The expertise is slightly different, right? The involvement is different. It isn't just on TV. Sometimes we see people saying, well, the board wants this, and we got to make sure that we're hitting these ROIs and we're hitting all these targets, right? So it kind of ostracizes the board to make it seem that they are these mean villains. They're not even humans. Well, we're not mean, and it's about community building, right? We want to see our communities thrive. We want our businesses or nonprofits to thrive. We want the people in the community to thrive. I will share personally, the reason why I am on certain boards is because my specialty as, business communication leadership, consultant, advisor, what I do, my specialty is in teams, it's in community. That's what I am good at. So when I go into any positions, a lot of people, they go in and a lot of them are in finance. And that's a great thing that they're in finance. And a lot of them have been in business for decades, which is fantastic because now I get free mentorship and great support and understanding. But at the same time, I am exceptional at community building. That's what I'm good at. That's what I know. And that is what is needed. So I've found my place, right? So that I can best support. I still have to have expertise. I still have to know what I'm doing. I still have to be able to read the numbers and be part of the governance committee. One of my roles at one of the organizations that I'm at is as vice chair. So right now I'm being trained and guided. So I'm really excited for that piece. But I know that my level of expertise is in community. So figure out for you, what's your level of expertise? If I'm joining a committee, if I'm joining a board, what is my expertise? What is my value that I can bring to help expand it, evolve it, transform it, so that as many people as possible, including yourself, the committee, the community, can thrive, that everyone benefits. It can't please everyone, but majority of people. Now, coming back to our role in a startup, if you are on a board with a new startup, this is really great because it's very hands-on, right? You're forming the board, you're forming committees, you're establishing strategies and plans, and there's a lot of work that you have to do. So if that is your jam, and if you're into doing all of that work, then hey, being in a startup may be great. And this could be a startup nonprofit or a startup for-profit, right? Just know that you have to do a lot of work. And there's nothing wrong with doing a lot of work, because now you can help refine your strategic your strategy, your abilities, that skill, so that okay, this startup needs direction, this startup needs leadership, this startup needs like a particular kind of support and foundation. You're part of that. You're implementing it. You're helping to you planted the seeds, you're seeing the roots grow, and you're helping to fortify it and make it stronger. So if that's your jam, Good on you. The second one is like in that growth stage. So if you're in a growth stage company that's ready to scale, well, the board is focusing on scaling operations and managing rapid growth. A lot of people want to grow very, very quickly. You see people in business like, I need to scale, I need to grow, I have to hit this number. Great. But if you don't have a plan and you don't have direction, and you don't have people that actually knows what it is that they're doing, you can crash and burn real quick and make some not very good decisions. To say, and this is just me saying it nicely, make not very good decisions. And I will say that being in the growth stage, you don't have to do as much work, but you're in that in between where you have to look at the past and look at the foundation while also having a vision for the future of the enterprise, of the business, or of the nonprofit. Because you have to grow at a certain rate, but you don't want to either overextend the CEO, or the director. You don't want to overextend the staff, because remember, they're going to be doing a lot of work too. And your connections, your abilities, you and the rest of the people on the board, you guys have to be working together to make sure that not only you're achieving these goals and hitting those ROIs, but you have to do it at a particular tempo, right? Like you have to have a cadence in the military, right? Right? What is that tempo we're going to go at? And how can we stay consistent? Because it is for the long term. And then finally, an established enterprise. Well, if you're in that position where you're like, okay, great, I've done it, I have the experience, I need to be on those boards with and businesses and or nonprofits, because people actually make a career out of being on boards, right? This is like a career path that you can do. Then there's certain requirements. You have to be in a particular network. You have to take certain courses. I know a lot of people don't think that it is, but and the reason why is because you need to understand things on a global level, not only on a national level, but international level. There's too much at stake. There's so much. There are people's lives, right? Their livelihoods, the economy. So, if you're there, good on you, and join an established board that or network that supports directors, that supports entrepreneurs, right? And get you not only the training you need, but open you up to the network so that you can be strategic on your path on being on certain boards. And it is much more efficient than trying to do it on your own and to get in. Speaking from experience, but that's just my own suggestion to you. Now, what is the strategic value of joining a board? Anyone? Someone? No? Okay, I'll just tell you. One of the strategic value of joining a board is broadening your strategic perspective. Broadening, widening, opening up whatever strategy perspective you currently have. Because perhaps maybe you're thinking about being on a board. So, but you have a small team and you don't fully understand certain things. Well, now you have to look at it from a whole perspective, not only from like as a CEO, like you're coming on the other side and understanding the impact that this business is having on a community and several other communities. How is our relationships impacting and influencing us? How are we being positively highlighted? There are many, many factors that go into this. This is why one of the value of joining a board is broadening your strategic perspective and learning from those mentors, free of charge, of course, because you're already in the room, you're at the table with those who have the experience, who have led in governance, who is leading strategically, right? They've done it. So great opportunity. The other piece is access to high-level decision making, as I mentioned earlier. Now it isn't just this one business. You have to look at it from a whole. How is this impacting things? You're getting exposure to large scale business strategies. You have to understand crisis management and governance decisions. Well, some people will say, well, I took a course. Good on you. I'm happy that you took a course, but this is going to stretch you. It is going to stretch you because now you're taking your expertise, whatever your expertise is, you're going to take your experience, however long your experience is, and you are now putting it to the test. And this is why you're going to be stretched. And this is why when new members come on any board, the senior members, before they leave, because there's generally like a time frame that people will stay, they are connected with a mentor so they can understand, they can learn, they can grow, they can observe. And you'll see a lot of people on the boards, especially the new ones, we have to keep our mouths closed. You keep your mouth closed and your ears absolutely open, because you need to, what you hear needs to like find space in your brain somewhere. It needs to like stick in there. And so there's that. And finally, you will be, one of the values, leveraging your board influence. When you're on the board, it's, you have influence to some degree. We all do. Everyone does. There's different levels of influence. And you're also influencing the organization's success and the executive's growth. So you'll see that certain CEOs or directors stay for a certain period of time. Some of them are highly successful. Some of them retire. Some of them come back because, they've done such an incredible job. But so they'll need to come back. The board will, invite them back, and lots of negotiations are made. But that's part of it. You're influential. Your influence matters, and your insight, your experience matters. So I hope this is getting you guys excited to be part of a board, or even if you're not thinking of being on a board, at least joining a committee so you can kind of test the waters and see. Don't forget, if you have any questions, to put it in the comments. If you have a comment, put it in the comment, and I want to hear from you. I want to learn from you as well. So please share your insight, and don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. Now, how does our personal and our professional growth, like how does this happen, our personal and professional growth? Well, you're going to start building a stronger personal network. It becomes more strategic, and this is in a good way. So maybe you're currently, there's lots of people in your network. Now you got to weed them. You got to whittle them down. You got to weed it out, right? And you need to connect with seasoned leaders, seasoned investors, industry experts. So you have to be intentional about the people in your network. Because when you're on a board, well, guess what? Your network matters. It does. I know people don't think so, but it does. So you have to be strategic in that. And I mean, be friends with anyone you want to, but when it comes to your purpose, when it comes to where you are going, where the vision is, if you're not intentional, if you're not strategic in your approach, well, you're just going to fly with the wind, right? And people don't want that. They want you to be that oak, solid and strong, immovable, can't move, but you have lots of branches, right? You provide tons of shade. So I hope my analogies that you guys are following along. Another thing is you get to learn from peers, right? You get to learn from them. You get to learn from their diverse experience. You get to enhance your skills, enhance your leadership development, because, I don't know everything in the world. You don't know everything in the world. But when you're in a group of seasoned veterans, right, who has done it, who has stayed the course, well, it gives you that free mentorship. Nothing's really for free, but I hope you understand what I mean by that, right? You're getting insights. You're getting clarity. And as well as if you need to work on something, that is the prime opportunity for you to be like, I need to be here. I have to take this training, or I need to have this support. And that also builds on understanding your strong personal, building a strong personal network, who you're associating with, right? So all of these things matter. Of course, it's going to enhance your credibility and your thought leadership. You'll be viewed as an expert in your industry. And if you're now starting off and you're thinking, well, I have to be at the top of the mountain, well, Rome was not built in a day. We can't climb the Himalayas in a day. It takes time, right? Mount Everest, you need training. You need to hike a couple other smaller mountains. You also need to have a guide who has done it to guide you up the mountain. And then you're like, yay, you put your pole at the top of Mount Everest, you take your fancy picture, you breathe in the air, because finally, as you're going up, you needed that oxygen mask, because of course the air is lighter the higher you go. And there are all those other dangers. But man, when you reach the top, whoa, people are like, what? You went up Mount Everest? Well, yes, I did. Well, I didn't go up, but just for example, right? And so they view you, it enhances your credibility because you've done it. You have the experience. You know what it takes to get there. You can understand, man, it took me 2 years to train for this. Perhaps I could have done it in 1 year for another time, or whatever it is. So now you can make it easier for anyone behind you that need that training, that come to you, to show them how they can do it more efficiently, more effectively, with less stress. As we move on here, what are some opportunities for entrepreneurs and founders to be on a board? Well, you get access to funding and potential investors. May not seem like it, but it does, because remember, now you're in a different room. You're in a different room. And, don't go in with that attitude thinking you're going in for an ask. No, you're there to be of service, first and foremost. You are there to be of service, whatever your expertise is. However, when you're there, you will meet people. Your network will expand. Your experience will expand. So it makes it a little bit easier. Okay. Another part is there's mentorship and guidance. I spoke about this earlier, right? There's just this value of learning from seasoned veterans of industry, and that is priceless. As well as there are opportunities for strategic partnerships, as well as expansions, right? Expansion of your business, strategic partnerships. So on boards, you can't have obviously conflict of interest, and that's not the intention there. But now you're learning so much, you're growing so much, you're also being of service, that you're understanding partnerships better, you're understanding expansion better, and as I said about the mentorship and guidance, that is priceless, because now you can be strategic, you can be intentional, and you can hit the right button at any time. When I say the right button, because you're in the right space, you're in the place that you need to be able to expand. So I hope you guys are all following along. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. So happy. Thank you. Now, what are some practical benefits to you? Well, we move on. What are some of the practical benefits? There are risk mitigation and governance, right? So you're looking at risk and how to minimize it. You're looking at governing. A lot of people think governing only belongs to the government. Well, if you are in any corporation, regardless of the size, you have to think of governance. People need the leadership. People need structure. Yes. Let's shake our head. Yes. Even the anarchists, They're still there. There's still some level of governance and still some level of leadership. Much as people don't want to hear that, it's a fact, it's a truth. So that's one of the benefits of being on a board. You get to understand governance, you get to understand the system better. And this isn't just for businesses, this also relates to governments too, right? There's a system in place for a reason, as well as that risk, right? You want to minimize the risk. Remember, it is not about the individual. You're not just looking at your own company here. It's communities, right? It's communities, and also you're looking at things from a national perspective and an international perspective, depending on the type of board that you're on and the influence that it has. All right. Another practical benefit that you will receive is improved decision making. You will collect an amazing amount of wisdom and varied perspective to be able to better lead and make better strategic choices, tactical choices. You will understand before you even make a decision some of the outcomes, right? I did a breakdown of the book The Art of War. Really, really love that book. I've read that book several times. And then, of course, on the YouTube channel, I broke down the Art of War itself, and then The Art of War for managers, because it helps with your decision. It helps with your decision making. You also get to understand elevating organizational reputation. Yes, your reputation matters. And the reputation of the company or the organization that you're on, it matters. Remember, I told you my expertise is in community building. I'm good at it. I mean, it's not to brag or anything. It's just I've been doing this for so long. And so your reputation, the reputation that goes before you, it goes ahead of you. And so because of that, certain people at the board, that reputation, people, oh, this one's on there. Oh, okay, no, it's a great organization. Now, they have no clue about certain things, but sometimes people just hear your name and automatically they're like, this is what it is. And we see this a lot in marketing and like when we look at, I'm just going to use, for example, Taylor Swift. People hear her name. Oh, it's like, she's there. Okay, this is what we should be doing. So I just use her as an example because, you know, most people around the world know her or know of her. Shouldn't say know her. I don't know her, but know of her. And, you know, all these little kids, teenagers, even adults are clamoring not only to buy her music, but any outfit or anything that can happen. And guess what? She even shifted economies. She shifted the economy with her presence when she went on tour, right? Fact, it made news. So your reputation, like building an organization's reputation, it elevates it. That's some of the practical benefits. And as that reputation increases, guess what? Your reputation increases because you're part of the process. You are part of the change. You're part of being, you're a part of the good name that is associated with that organization and what they're doing. Let's move on. Don't forget, if you have any questions, put it in the comments below. You have a comment, maybe you have a tip. I am open to you to sharing it. And also don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Now, why be on the board? How is board mastery important to you? Well, as we continue on, there's a power of diversity. Everyone's like, well, do we really need diversity and inclusion and all of these things? Well, I'm not here to discuss that, but on a board, if there are diverse people, for example, instead of all men, there's women, right? A healthy mix of both, with they're coming from different backgrounds, right? Generally, you will see one kind, but if there is a couple of diverse people on there, it becomes more impactful. It becomes more powerful because now you can tap into various communities. And that is key because that particular individual is coming from a place of understanding of what a particular group may or may not want, in a sense, right? What are they looking for? What are their needs? And so they're essentially, officially, unofficially, they're unofficially kind of representing that while they're on that on a board. It may not seem that way, but there is some truth to it, right? And once you have diversity on a board, please understand that it leads to better innovation. It leads to better strategic foresight and risk management because they're coming from a different kind of experience. There are some who, let's say they were born in a particular country, right? And they're on there. So they understand a particular system and way of being. But if someone came as an immigrant to a new country, for example, they worked their way through and they understood what they had to do and they know the struggle and they've seen that. And now they're on a board, for example. They're coming from a particular culture. They're coming from a particular mindset. That level of diversity, now they have insight because they've been through something that someone that was born in a country wouldn't necessarily experience. And it's not a good thing or a bad thing or means that someone had to struggle more or anything like that. It is just that level of experience and that level of insight from a cultural perspective that can help to influence innovation and strategic foresight. So I hope you all are with me. And as well as the impact of diversity in business decisions, like if you're on a board, I want you to also understand that those decisions are for long-term growth and sustainability. This is nothing that a board does. It's never short-term. It doesn't matter if you're a startup, you're in growth stage, or you're established, right? It is never for a short term. This is a marathon. They're looking at everything from a long-term perspective. Now, if you're new, you want to keep your mouth closed and your ears very much open to fill the space up in there. However, as you continue on and you're growing and you're learning, this is where you can provide some insights when it's necessary and when it's needed. Another area of boardroom mastery and why, as an entrepreneur, why as an executive, senior executive, or CEO director, why you should be on a board is because it's good for the community. It's good in building your leadership. I have no other words other than that. I'm not even trying to say anything fancy or elegant with it because you're impacting and influencing and making decisions for people, for the herd, essentially. And when you start seeing that, you start recognizing how your experience is so invaluable and how much more the people need the leaders, not only in government, but in the businesses, right? And how it works together to ensure a thriving community, a thriving nation. It becomes easier, especially when you have that unity. A good example. we could look at current events, but then it becomes too political. So I wouldn't use current events. But if we look at Nelson Mandela, for example, he wasn't on a board. He didn't have any board mastery or anything like that. But he united an entire country. And then he proceeded to try to unite a continent. And essentially started influencing the world. They wanted to hear from him. He became president, South Africa. And then when he retired, he was part of many boards. He was part of, consulting with different organizations because people wanted to understand his perspective, his strategy. What did he do? How did this man essentially unite a nation? How do you do this? How do you heal from a lot of stuff that has happened? And you look at that and you start seeing it. Wow, then you recognize I have that value to give. Now, it may not be on that particular level, but don't think about it like that. Just be of service. Be of service and build the community. That's the key right there. When we look at Mahatma Gandhi, he didn't start off thinking, well, I'm going to do all of these things and change the world. Right? He started off, he was a lawyer at first, and he started to evolve and grow. And he stood up and he united a nation. You think about it, he built a community from a nation. And then he started influencing other parts of the world. A lot of work happened, a lot of stress, a lot of things. We look at Mother Teresa, same thing, right? She was a nun. She helped her ministry. Her focus was healing children. She was with children, the orphans and widows. And she started off just one at a time. And then eventually, before she passed, people wanted to understand. They wanted to learn. How did you heal a generation of people? How do you unite people and bring such awareness and unity and support? How do you command that sort of result? Right? Just take a look at them and take a look at history. So I didn't really give you those particularly like on a board, but I'm giving you the example, something that's relatable, something that's tangible, so that you can understand the impact and the influence that your experience and you as a person, I'm talking to you, will have on the organization that you're on the board on, and how that impacts the community that you're in, and how that community impacts and influences other communities, and so on and so forth, until it eventually impacts the nation. All right. So how do you get involved on a board? How do you get involved in a board membership? Well, you know what? You need to consider where you want to be. Where can you be of best service? If you're now starting off and you have zero idea, well, think about maybe joining a committee. Start there. Be like, let me see, what can I do, right? So I would start there. If not, look at your local nonprofits. If you're trying to get a bit more experience, if you want to know, is this for me, is this not for me? If you're interested in governance, you more than likely want to be part of the governance, right? So you can have the impact that's needed. And as I mentioned earlier in the beginning of this conversation, I said that there are opportunities and organizations that's specific to either entrepreneurs or senior executive directors, CEOs, that position you on board. They have those relationships with the organizations. And of course, there's a fee to be part of that network, but it may or may not work for you. As well as there's training, right? Especially if you're serious about this stuff, there's training available by experts in the field that can train you and guide you and help you along. And that might be something that you may want to consider. And then you also want to network and get some visibility. right? So showing up at events that the organization that you're interested in joining, be part of it. Talk to them. Usually, board members, at least one, would be there, right? One or two. So you want to go meet some people, talk to them, see what these things are like. And then, of course, you want to create a board ready profile, which is positioning yourself. When you're creating that profile, that's where I mentioned there are organizations that do prepare and help CEOs, directors, or senior execs and entrepreneurs to be prepared. There's training, there's courses and programs available, usually like 1 day or 2 days, because it's very specific to what you may and or may not need to be effective on the boards that you're considering being on, which can either be paid or non-paid. So that's how you can get involved. But as I said, if you're new and you're now starting off, start small. Don't go to Mount Everest if what you need to do is, be at the bottom, starting, right? What are some of the challenges? We're almost finished, and I want to thank you guys for staying tuned in and locked in this entire time. So very much appreciated. What are some of those challenges and consideration when you are on a board? Well, time commitment. Your time is going to be required, and so you have to understand where you're going to be a board member. You have to understand what it is that you want out of being on a board and the type of position that you want when you're on the board. So all of these things you have to factor in. So you want to essentially be effective, but you also need to be efficient because we can't get back time, right? And time is required. So you got to be strategic with that, and you want to understand the requirements and what it is that you can give and what you want from it. So finding that balance. The other part is cultural fit. Do you align with the company's values, missions, culture? It's like a lot of businesses, right? Or organizations, or let's say you're in coaching or consulting, whatever it is. They want to know, do we align? Does this align? Or some people going in for job interviews, right? They go in, they're like, man, I love this job. This job is amazing. I want to be here. But then they go on the interview and they realize, ooh, this does not align. And maybe they may be the best candidate for the position, but because they just don't align with the company, it just wouldn't work. And if you try to force it, then it becomes a disaster and messy and not good. So ensure that it's a cultural fit. And that's where that networking piece, when you're, as I spoke about, like how you get involved, means showing up at some events that they may have. So you can see, do I want to be around these people? Do I want to be part of this? And that's important, right? You got to do some work. It's like research, right? You gotta do the research and collect some data first before you can see and commit. And then, of course, another challenge that you may encounter and things to consider is balancing multiple board roles. Remember, some people they make this is their livelihood. They're just on boards because they've been doing this for decades. They're good at what they do, and so they are either presidents and so they, or directors, whatever position, right? So they know how, the time commitment. They've figured it out. It's effortless for them. But if you're now starting off, instead of trying to join 10 different boards at once, maybe you might want to try 2 or 3, depending on the level of commitment that is expected of you and your own personal work that you have to commit to, because you need to have the level of excellence in every single position You can't just be excellent in one area and then not excellent in another area. It's just, you don't want to ruin your reputation. Because you've overextended yourself. Okay, so you need to figure out what's going to work for you. Are you going to be in a leadership role or just as a member? Or there are all of these factors that you want to do, and take your time. Even if it's just one, maybe you just want to start off with one. Sometimes just one is enough. That's all you can do, and guess what? That's appreciated because you could just learn so much, even just being on one board, especially if you take the time to learn and to invest and to be mentored. Okay. That's all I have. Don't forget, if you have any questions, I want you to put it in the comments. I want to hear your thoughts on Boardroom Mastery, how you've empowered yourself, and or thoughts, and like thinking to yourself, I didn't factor in all of these things, all of these elements of being on a board, and how this actually impacts and influences my community. How is it impacting and influencing people? Like, it is. You're changing lives. There's decisions that are going to be made that affects people. And you can't take that for granted. Okay? You can't take that for granted. People's lives are impacted by decisions of others. All right. So I truly hope that you enjoyed this session. Once again, I want to thank you guys for staying tuned, staying locked in, staying tuned in as I talked about Boardroom Mastery and the value of being on a board and why you want to be on a board and how you can influence and shift, change. You can have such great impact. Don't forget to take that step. Perhaps join a committee. Think about, I'm into the arts. Maybe I should join the board of my local art gallery or something. You may want to do something small to see how you can impact that organization and the people that are using the facilities. Right? Don't forget, if you would like to work with me in your communications, in your leadership, in your business, reach out to me, send me a DM. I want to thank you for taking the time, for being incredible and amazing. Have a great week, and I'll see you next week for another episode of B2B Live.